Hey guys, DOWSEY here and welcome back to the Shrine Report. It is week 37, the 11th of September, and we've got a, it's not the best shrine, I'll be honest. We'll kick it off with a bad shrine report, but let's have a look at the perks. It's Remember Me, it's Agitation, it's Tenacity, and it's Dance With Me. So let's break down these perks and go into detail into what they do, and put them into some perk builds. So here we are on the Shrine Report with not the best shrine. I'll be honest, it's not my most favorite shrine I've seen in a while. I don't expect anyone to be jumping at the bit for any of these perks in particular. I mean, Dance With Me is okay. But it is the last perk that we're going to be reviewing. So if you do want to wait around till the end of the video or skip ahead using the timestamps in the comment section or in the description, you can do so. Let's kick it off at the top with Remember Me. Remember Me is a unique teachable from the Nightmare Freddy, unlocked at level 35 and onwards. And the way this perk works is each time you hit your obsession, who is shown to you by the claw marks on either side of their name, a bit like in the perk icon here, the two claw marks. Each time you hit that obsession, you increase the time it takes to open the exit gates. So exit gates take 20 seconds to open, and each time you hit the obsession, you add 4 seconds to up to a 16 additional seconds. So you can get 4 tokens of Remember Me stacks by hitting the obsession 4 times. So that's 2 chases worth of hits, and that's going to make the exit gates take 36 seconds to open rather than the regular 20 seconds. Now, the obsession isn't affected by this debuff. They're going to be able to open the exit gates within the 20 seconds that it normally takes, but everyone else who's left alive at the end of the trial will take however long, depending on how many times you've hit them. At tier 1, you only can get up to 8 additional seconds. At tier 2, it's 12 additional seconds. And at tier 3, it's 16 additional seconds from the tokens of Remember Me. So Remember Me actually got nerfed recently when the developers added the endgame collapse into Dead by Daylight. They believed that if you could have 6 stacks of Remember Me, which it used to be able to add 24 additional seconds, if I remember correctly, that it would be too strong in endgame collapse, and so they brought it down to 16 seconds. So Remember Me is a weaker perk than it used to be. That being said, with endgame collapse in the game, potentially it's okay. Remember, endgame collapse doesn't start until an exit gate is powered, so it's kind of twisted thinking, in my opinion, from the balance team and the devs that they nerfed the perk even though it's not going to be affected by endgame collapse, but I can kind of understand some of the logic behind it. Would you run Remember Me in a perk build? Probably not. In the past, when Legion used to be able to use his Feral Frenzy to down survivors, I used to use Remember Me because all I had to do was chase the obsession once or twice, and I could have 6 stacks of Remember Me stacked up by hitting them with my Feral Frenzy each time instead of M1ing them. But in the current state of the game, having that additional 16 seconds potential of exit gate opening time isn't really going to do you as much good. I mean, you could run Noed if you really wanted to, and you're probably going to get more effectiveness than Remember Me is going to give you. You could probably even run Blood Warden and get more effectiveness, because the survivors, once they've opened the gate, will then sit in the gate and not realize that Blood Warden gives you auras of survivors in the gate, and you can probably get 1 or 2 extra downs from that. Remember Me isn't necessarily going to help you get more kills once the last generator is completed. It might, but now you're basically picking a perk that requires you to lose the game to get effectiveness from it. And that's, in my opinion, a fault in itself. I don't think you should ever pick perks that require you to lose to use them. You know, that's Noed, that's Blood Warden, that's Remember Me. These perks are only active in the end game once the last generator is completed. It doesn't seem like it's a very proactive way to play killer. And you may say DOWSEY, but like Adrenaline is a perk that requires you to get to end game as a survivor. Why is that a good perk? Because survivors' goal is to escape. You know, if they're getting to end game, then they can power the exit gates. As a killer, you don't ever want the survivors to get to that state of the game. You never want them to be completing the last generator. You want to do everything in your power to stop them. often. So you want to be running stuff like Hex Ruin and Pop Goes the Weasel. You want to be running chase perks like Enduring and Brutal Strength to get through the game quicker. Maybe save the best for last to be able to end chases quicker. Another stacking perk. There's much better perks that you can be running: Barbecue and Chili, or Corrupt Intervention, or even Thrilling Tremors, just to give you that awareness, Discordance, so you can stop survivors working to specific generators. There's just much better perks, in my opinion, you can run over Remember Me. That's going to allow you to stop a game from even getting to the endgame state. And if that's what you're relying on to win an endgame, then you're picking perks to lose at that point. So probably wouldn't recommend that you purchase Remember Me if you haven't got the Freddy DLC, because of the fact that it is a perk that requires you to lose to win, if that makes sense. And that's just, it's a faulty mindset to begin with. The next perk for Killer is Agitation. Agitation is a unique perk from the Trapper, unlocked at level 35 and onwards. And the way this perk works is that when you are carrying a survivor to a hook, you get a movement speed increase, 6% at tier 1, 12% at tier 2, and 18% at tier 3. And also, whilst you're transporting the survivor, your terror radius is increased by 12 meters. So all killers have the same carrying speed in the game, except for one exception. I'll get there. That is a walking speed of 92%. So if you assume survivors walk at 100%, then you're 92%, so you're 8% slower than the survivors when you're carrying a survivor. That works out to be 3.68 meters per second. Just as I guess a comparison point, the nurse walks at 96% movement speed when she's not blinking, and she walks at slower than survivors. So that you're walking slower than survivors. That means survivors can body block you. Why would you run Agitation then? Well, it allows you to get to the hook quicker. When you run Agitation at tier 3 for that 18% movement speed increase, now you're walking at 3.68 meters per second, which works out to be 4.34 meters per second. Sorry. Now when you're carrying a survivor, you're walking at 4.34%. I'm getting my words mixed up. You have to bear with me. When you're carrying a survivor, you're walking at 4.34 meters per second. Wow, that took too long to get out, which works out to be just under 110% movement speed. It's probably around 108% movement speed, maybe 107% movement speed. So you're walking faster than the survivors. You can actually catch a survivor that's in front of you with Agitation. So what a lot of killers will do is they'll run Agitation, they'll run Iron Grasp, which is going to increase the time it takes for a survivor to wiggle out of your grasp while you're carrying them. And then they might even add Mad Grit as well, so they can Fruit Ninja their way through a survivor, and if they hit the survivor, then it's going to pause the wiggle time for 4 seconds, and you can punish survivors because you're walking faster than them. They're trying to body block, and you're just whacking them. So Agitation is one of those perks that gets more value the more perks you stack on to use with it, such as Iron Grasp and Mad Grit. There was actually a point in the game when it was really old that if a survivor saboed a hook, that hook would never respawn. So killers actually had to run Agitation and Iron Grasps to get a survivor to the basement hooks, the only hooks that couldn't be saboed, because all the survivors would just go around and sabotage the hooks on the map before they worked the generators, meaning the killer could never get anyone to a hook. That's not the case anymore. Hooks respawn within 3 minutes time, so the sabo meta isn't really a thing. Would you run Agitation or Iron Grasp? That's a good question some people ask. Iron Grasp is going to allow you to get further than Agitation will. So if you were to do a race, 2 killers holding a survivor on their shoulders, and they were to try and walk from one side of the map to the other, the killer running Iron Grasp would get further than the killer running Agitation. However, the killer running Agitation would get to their endpoint quicker than the killer running Iron Grasp. So whilst you can't go as far with Agitation, you can get there faster. And that could be an effective way of saving seconds in a game. Let's say you hit a survivor down and you have to walk to a hook. Well, now you walk to the hook faster, you get back into the game quicker. That could be really useful on a slow killer, such as the Huntress, the Spirit, the Hag, that walk at 110% movement speed, 4.4 meters per second. Now, I did say earlier there's an exception to the carrying speed rule. Every killer walks at 3.68 meters per second when carrying a survivor, except for the pig. This is a bug in the game that the developers have never addressed. The reason is when the developers make killers, they take the base stats of another killer and they use that. They copy that onto the new killer that they were making. And when they were making the pig, they used the huntress as a base. And the huntress walks at 4.4 meters per second. But then once they had designed her kit, they went, nah, 4.4 meters is too slow. Let's just put it up to 4.6 meters. And they never adjusted the multipliers that comes with that. So that means that when the pig is carrying a survivor, they're actually carrying them at 3.85 meters per second rather than 3.98 meters per second, which works out to be 96.25%, which is actually a nurse's walking speed, right? So the pig carries the survivor at the same speed that the nurse walks. So if you were to use agitation at 18% additional movement speed, you would now be walking at 4.543 meters per second, which is almost as fast as pig's walking speed. It's faster than huntress and hag walk at. So maybe you guys want to try an agitation build on pig. Fruit Ninja Pig. Maybe we make a video on it. Could be fun. I don't think it's going to win you games, but it's a meme build, and now you know that the pig walks faster than everyone else whilst carrying a survivor. Maybe you want to use that information until the developers fix that. Would you buy Agitation on the Shrine? No. It's a Trapper perk. Unlocked at level 35. It's only going to take 750,000, 800,000, maybe 850,000 if you got unlucky blood points to level up the Trapper to level 35, because he's a free DLC killer. Never put shards into a free DLC killer. Would you want to use Agitation in your builds? Probably only if you're going for that Fruit Ninja meme build with Mad Grit and Iron Grasp. Otherwise, probably not. Not a perk that is really going to win you games. If you want to use Agitation just to get back into the game quicker after downing a survivor and hooking them, that makes sense. I get it. That's not the worst idea. It's just there's probably better perks that are going to allow you to win the game than Agitation, and perks that are going to save you time, like Enduring and Brutal Strength, like Spirit Fury, even like Save the Best for Last. These perks that even Fire Up in a way is probably better than Agitation. They're the ones that increase your speed in different areas. Rightio, I bet you didn't think I had that much to talk about on Agitation. Agitation's an interesting perk. Tenacity is the first survivor perk here, unlocked at level 30 in the Blood Webs when you level up David Tap from the Sword DLC. David Tap, Detective Tap, he's known as Detective Tap in the game. Is he actually called David Tap, or is this just a wiki area? I don't know. Anyway, the way Tenacity works is that you crawl faster when you are down. So at tier 1 you crawl 30% faster, at tier 2 you crawl 40% faster, at tier 3 you crawl 50% faster. Now I bet if I just quickly tab out of DBD real quick and scroll down, oh no, I thought I would get some information onto crawling speeds here. So crawling as a survivor, you crawl at 0.7 meters per second, which is 17.5%. It's very slow. So now you're getting a little bit more speed on that. At tier 3, you're getting, what would that be? 8.5 additional, 8.75 additional speed. So now instead of crawling at 17.5, you're crawling at 6.25, I think, if that's correct. So it's not like a huge amount more, but Tenacity can be pretty surprising to a killer. Also, you are able to recover at the same time. That's more important, really, than the speed itself. You can start crawling away from the killer and recover at the same time. So why would you want to do this? Well, you could stack this with another perk called Unbreakable from the Build DLC, and that will increase the speed that you recover at. So then you could start crawling away from the killer with Tenacity, get that additional recovery speed from Unbreakable, and maybe you could, with some line of sight break whilst crawling, evade the killer and pick yourself up. Now, if you want to go even further with this, maybe you pair it with Flip Flop, which is going to convert 50% of your recovery rate bar into wiggle progress. So if you get yourself to 100% recovery and then you get picked up, now you have 50% wiggle bar already. Maybe you want to go even further and add Boil Over onto that as well. Kate Denson's level 40 perk, I believe. And then it's going to increase the wiggle effect, the stumbling effect the killers have, and maybe you will wiggle off the killer's shoulder. There you go. A bit of a meme build using Tenacity, Unbreakable, Boil Over, and Flip Flop. Do you want to buy Tenacity on the Shrine? Now I've said that. Probably not. It's not a very good perk. At the end of the day, when you're using perks that are going to potentially evade the killer whilst you've been downed, what's the point? You could use perks that allow you to evade the killer whilst you're still running, whilst you have control in the scenario. Perks like Dead Hard and Balanced Landing, Sprint Burst, and Life that are going to allow you to evade the killer in a chase. Perks that are going to give you information that the killer is even going to chase you, like Spine Chill would be even more useful, and you don't even have to buy that off the shrine. That's just a freebie in the Bloodwebs. There's just better perks than Tenacity. But if you did want to run a meme build where you stack 4 perks that are going to potentially allow you to wiggle off the killer's shoulder, then be my guest. I can't wait to kill you later on in the trial. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but Tenacity's not a great perk. Let's move on to the last Survivor perk. Survivors didn't really get any luck here. I mean, I guess the killer perks aren't great either, but I think the Survivor perks are worse. Here's Dance With Me, a unique teachable from Kate Denson, unlocked at level 30 and onwards. And I actually kind of like this perk, but it's not a very strong perk. So how does this work? Well, when you fast vault or leave a locker in a sprint, you leave no scratch marks for 3 seconds. So that's kind of useful. At tier 1, the perk goes on cooldown after that happens. So at tier 1 it takes 60 seconds to recover that. At tier 2 it's 50 seconds. At tier 3 that's 40 seconds. And there's no like conditions on this recovery rate speed. You can be sprinting, you can be in chase, you can be in locker, you can be standing still. It's not like an exhaustion perk where you have to walk. It's not like some of the perks like Pebble where you have to not be in the killer's terror radius or not in a chase, whatever it might be. Dance With Me just recovers once it's been used. So how can you use this perk to your effectiveness? Well, this perk is one of those perks that you have to stack other perks on top of it to get real good use out of it. So Dance With Me, for 3 seconds after you fast vault or leave a locker in a sprint, you're going to leave no scratch marks. So how can we use that? Well, there is a perk called Life, an exhaustion perk from Feng Min, which allows you to ult over a window and get a movement speed increase for 3 seconds. So pair it with Dance With Me, which also gives you no scratch marks for 3 seconds. Now your movement vault, your sprint out of the window is completely trackless from the killer unless you're bleeding. There's no signs of where you went. And if you can break line of sight, then potentially you can evade the killer right there and then using both Life and Dance With Me. How else can we make that more effective? Well, we can put Quick and Quiet on it, which is going to remove the sound as well as the pop-up, the notification that comes when you fast vault a window. And now the killer may not, there is a slight sound, but it's very much quieter. Maybe the killer won't even know you vaulted a window. And if you're able to break line of sight, then potentially you can escape. If you want to go even further, you can chuck Iron Will on it. If in case you're injured, then with Iron Will, you won't have any cries of pain, so the killer won't be able to identify where you are with sound. But of course, if you are injured, then the killer will be able to track your blood. And usually this is what happens when you use these perks in combination with each other, is that the killer just looks to the ground, sees blood trailing away, and they follow the blood. Dance With Me can be pretty interesting to use. I think it's okay, actually. You can also pair this, by the way, Dance With Me with Head On. Head On, you have to sit in a locker for 3 seconds. It's a teachable from Jane Romero. It was on the shrine last week. And if you jump sprint out of the locker and the killer's standing in front of it, it stuns them for 3 seconds. So if you're able to then run away from the locker in those 3 seconds that the killer is stunned, then maybe, and break line of sight, then maybe you can just evade the killer straight there and then and just be an annoying pest. So Dance With Me has some good combinations. Life and Head On pair well with it. Quick and Quiet pairs well with it, as well as what was the last one I said? Iron Will pairs well with it. But it is another perk where you have to stack perks on top of it to make it work. You really have to revolve a build around Dance With Me if you want to use Dance With Me. Otherwise, it's not as effective by itself. So, would you buy it on the shrine? I would probably say you would. I think so. I think it's fun. Is it a meta perk that's going to win you games? No. So, if that's all you care about, then definitely don't buy it on the shrine. But are you looking for different ways to play Survivor, different ways to evade the killer, different ways to have fun in Dead by Daylight? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then buy Dance With Me on the shrine and have some fun with Life and Head On and with Quick and Quiet and with Iron Will, just to evade the killer in different ways and really be a Survivor that changes the way the killer plays. There can be some power in changing the way your opponent has to play to beat you. That's you know, just a very standard competitive tactic in any game, that if you change the way the killer has to play to beat you, then that puts them out of their comfort zone. It does require a lot of luck, I think, Dance With Me to pull off. But when you pull it off, it feels really good. And I've definitely pulled it off versus a handful of spirits that weren't expecting me to evade them using Dance With Me in Life and Quick and Quiet and Iron Will. So, you know, keep that in mind. Right, that wraps up our shrine here for week 37, the 11th of September. Not the best of shrines, I will admit, not great, but some interesting ideas there. And I bet you didn't know that the pig carries survivors quicker than any other killer in the game. And maybe you're going to go and try Fruit Ninja Pig just for the lols and run around at 4.5 movement speed per second, meters per second. I am, of course I am, why not? Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the shrine. Let me know what you think of the perks in the shrine, and let me know what you want to see on the next week's shrine. If you will it in the comments section, then there is a 100% chance maybe that it will be in next week's shrine. That is a complete bullshit lie that I just told you, but please do tell me what you want. Guys, thanks for watching. I've been DOWSEY. Catch you on the next video. Take care.